Okay, I think we'll go ahead and get started now. So, good morning, everyone. My name is Savannah Blantz. I'm a research analyst at CCM, and I now administer the CCM Energy Program. Thank you so much for joining us today for today's webinar, How to Navigate a Rising Energy Market. This is the first webinar of our new CCM Services series, a series of webinars that detail all of CCM's programs and services. So please be on the lookout for other announcements about other parts of this series. Before we begin today, I'm going to go over a few housekeeping items. First, today's webinar is recorded and will later be distributed to all attendees. Additional, the recording and a copy of the presentation will be made available on CCM's website. All attendees will be muted throughout the webinar, but we encourage you to participate in the discussion. This can be done by asking questions through the chat box. We ask attendees to please ask questions throughout the webinar, and they will be addressed at the end during a Q&A session. We are grateful today to our presenter, Justin Kearney, and also to our program representative, Brendan Kearney from Titan Energy for participating in this webinar. And we hope that you all take away valuable information from this training. And with that, I will hand it over to our presenter, Justin Kearney.
Thank you, Savannah, and thank you everybody who is attending today. Thank you to CCM for putting this on. We've got a lot to cover today. I know that, and I could see that there's been a lot of participants today, so I think this is a topic that I'm imagining is resonating with a lot of people. Every day we're seeing pieces of news that are relating to the energy prices, and as I think you are all seeing, it is energy prices being on the upside. So I think one of the things we're trying to that we're looking forward to talking about today is how this is going to impact Connecticut ratepayers, Connecticut municipalities. Really, there's three, I think, primary goals of the session today. One, hoping to provide a little bit of an informative session just about what is going on and why the energy prices have increased and are increasing. And two, to help prepare for I don't want to say an era of higher costs, but a period of higher costs that I think we're going to be very likely seeing in Connecticut and New England in general. And then three, obviously the most important part, and what this the session is really sort of guided towards is how we're going to navigate through this. How Titan, we have ideas to navigate through this and how we've been doing so. So looking forward to going through that, as well as showing some good examples of what some case studies of CCM members actually having done a good job. So we've got a lot to cover, so I'm going to dive in. I just wanted to mention again for everybody here. So this is your team. We'll be sending this around, and this is going to be recorded. But Savannah Blantz is your program manager. I know some of you knew Andy Marola from the past. Savannah is now in that role, so please, obviously, outside of myself and Brendan at Titan Energy, feel free to reach out to Savannah with any questions. So just to give you a little bit of an overview of what we're going to go through, very high level, just review of what the CCM Energy Program is and Titan Energy. Then I'm going to go into a market update, which is really going to be guided towards what is going on. And then into a market outlook, which is, I think, a little bit guided towards where things may be going. Some data points that we're looking at. I think that's probably a question of where a lot of you are interested in hearing our take on that, or hearing maybe anyone's take on that. And then, really an important part: how is this going to impact your budget? And there's a variety of different ways that it could, but I think we're trying to give you a real concrete understanding of how this rising electricity and gas prices in the region are going to impact budgets. And then we're going to go through a couple case studies of some CCM Energy Program members and how they've done, and then get into some best practices for navigating the market. And I do want to mention, so please feel free to ask questions along the way. You can send questions through the chat box here. I'm going to just stop at a few points because I definitely want to make sure as I get into some of the market things that everybody's understanding what we're going through. And if you do have any questions, please feel free. We will leave time at the end, but I'll stop a couple times throughout too. So just again, feel free to ask some questions. So just a quick overview of Titan Energy, and I'll go very quickly through this, because for those of you, I think a lot of you on the call might already know us, but we are a full service energy consulting company. We offer everything from commodity procurement, demand side management, on-site generation, data management, and dashboarding. We're headquartered in Connecticut, so this is our home. We've got customers all over the country. This is a very important market for us, and obviously our relationship with the CCM Energy Program is very important to us. So just a quick review or overview for people who don't know. Titan Energy was selected in 2018 to take over the CCM Energy Program. It was a competitively selected RFP. Since we were selected, we have helped municipals save over $18 million in energy spend. I think when we get to a part later in this, you'll see that number is going to grow very rapidly, the savings number, very soon, as we're heading into an era of higher energy prices. And just some high level stats, we've procured 540 million kilowatt hours. This is a little bit about our process, which I won't really go into today because a lot of you have worked with us already, and of course outside of here, happy to go through it. But just very high level, the tenets of the CCM Energy Program, as some of you might know, it is a transparent fee. The fee that is paid through CCM Energy and Titan Energy is transparent, and it's part of the initial sign-on form, which is very important in terms of driving down costs. And I'll get to that a little later. Comes with a consulting agreement, and obviously, we come with supplier neutrality, which is part of our what I'd call rigorous competitive bidding process. So, just a quick overview on Titan and the CCM Energy Program here. And again, Titan is a full service energy consulting company. Happy to talk to people outside of here on any one of these things. Obviously, this is going to be a conversation really focused on procurement alone. But again, I think as we get to the end of the conversation and some of the best practices for navigating through this, some of these other items may come up. They're all part of in our view, the overall managing your overall strategy, making sure that everything is tied together, including all of these particular items. So just quickly, I'm going to go into a market update here for everybody, just because this is really, what gets us to today. A lot has happened over the last couple of years, obviously, and not just the energy world, but in some ways, the pandemic and its after effects is very much related to what is going on in the energy world. So, this is just essentially just a review of what has been going on in the electricity and natural gas world over the last couple of years. So it's really three parts: electricity and natural gas market update. I'm going to talk a little bit about something that some of you might be reading about or heard about, which is liquefied natural gas and why this is important to us. And then how this is going to impact New England and obviously Connecticut specifically. So just to review, for everybody, we're going to be talking a lot about natural gas prices, and I just want to explain off the top why. The reason for that is because natural gas prices drive regional electricity prices. This chart here shows this obviously really direct correlation between natural gas prices and wholesale electricity. So the reason we are focused on natural gas prices is because it impacts everything. It impacts obviously your natural gas costs, but very one-to-one directly your electricity costs. So all the things that impact natural gas costs are going to impact your electricity. Those include things like weather, natural gas pipeline constraints, and increasingly liquefied natural gas, which is LNG is the term that I'll probably be using throughout to refer to that. So to go back in time here a little bit, and this goes back a couple years, this is a chart that we use often in terms of trying to track the market and find the right times to buy. And I view this a lot like, you can view this a lot like a stock. What this shows is how forward natural gas prices have changed over time. So, theoretically, you want to be at a point in the market where you're at a dip. And obviously over the last couple years, we've seen the contrast in incredibly low energy prices, which we saw at the sort of bottom during the pandemic in May of 2020 to where we are now, is quite striking, and it's related. So this is an important chart to show essentially how much everything has increased. Gas, during the pandemic used to be trading for $2 per decatherm. We are now getting close to $6, triple the price. And then to add, I guess, insult to injury in New England, and this is what the asterisk here points to, NYMEX natural gas is a commodity. It's a national commodity. The problem in New England is you have to get a commodity from where it's taken out of the ground to here. And one of the big sort of adding fuel to the fire out here variables is that we really don't have enough pipeline capacity in New England. And that has run up prices dramatically. So, this is an important barometer, but unfortunately in New England, the situation actually gets a little worse. So just as to track alongside that, Ford Electricity in Connecticut has run along the same path. So this goes back to October of 2021. The market has really just been rising since then. Recently, we, essentially in this time of the year, this could normally be a time and you start to see some relief because you have, warmer end of winter forecasts. But unfortunately, those have been balanced out by lagging natural gas production domestically. We'll get to that a little later. But, I think one of the things that we're talking to clients about is that as you track this for everybody who, just to explain quickly on this chart, what each of these lines represents is a different calendar year and how that calendar year's pricing, forward pricing, has moved over time. So the one that has moved up the most dramatically is next year. But where there are still relative buying opportunities is the 3 years following that, 24, 25, and 26. So of course, when we're working with our clients, people who may already have a contract extended out, trying to find any kind of relative buying opportunity to still buy at a time when this market may be low, these are still value terms. Next year is a little more challenging. But, again, this was driven primarily by natural gas prices and is a big increase from where we were a couple of years ago. So as I mentioned, going back, I think it's important to sort of put the price change into a longer perspective, because, in essence, we've had it good in the United States, you could say, for we had a good period of following 2014 up until, following the pandemic. We had a long 7-year period of what I would call sustained natural gas prices. They obviously ran up and down sort of in relatively speaking throughout that term, but not in any way sort of resembling what we're dealing with now. One of the things that I think is important to point out for those of you who may have been here in your role or purchasing energy at prior to 2012 or around 2012 is that you probably do remember times when electricity and gas were more expensive. And I do think it's important to put this into perspective that these are prices that we have seen before in New England. We've had it good for 6-7 years, but we actually have seen natural gas prices this high back following what was called the polar vortex in 2013, 2014, 2050, which was, there was a very, very cold winter. So, unfortunately, like I mentioned earlier, the situation in New England, though, as it pertains to the more recent price increase is actually worse. And I think it's important that we set this expectation for everybody because it's the reality of the situation is not, it's not, it's important for everybody to acknowledge. But again, these are prices that we've seen before. So one of the reasons why, and I'll get into this, so that the impact of global liquefied natural gas, one of the reasons why we've seen prices increase all over the country, as shown in this chart here, but also, more dramatically in New England, is because of the fact that the United States is exporting record amounts of natural gas abroad. And the way that we've done that is not, we export a little through pipeline, but the primary way dwarfs any kind of other exports has been through liquefied natural gas. So what is this? I've got a picture of what these tankers are here, but essentially what happens is Gas gets sent down to terminals, most of them in the Gulf of Mexico and a couple other places, where they have a very complex process where they liquefy the natural gas, which is a gas. They put it into these tankers, here's a picture of it, and then they ship it to the rest of the world. So obviously, a lot of you have probably been following what's been going on in Ukraine, and the fallout from that in the European countries trying to get off of Russian oil and natural gas. So where are they going to get their natural gas from? One of the primary ways that they're going to get natural gas is from the United States. And that is through liquefying it, putting it in a tanker, shipping it overseas, unliquefying it, and throwing it back into the pipelines. And you say, that's crazy. How is it possible that that would be economical for them after all that process to still make it there and still be the cheapest gas they could buy? I'll get to that in a second. But I've also have a chart here showing how dramatically our liquefied natural gas export capacity has grown. So you can see this chart started in 2016, obviously, only 5 years ago, 2017, not much export. And now, I mean, just stepping up dramatically to the point where we are exporting record amounts. And what is this doing? This is taking natural gas off of the United States market. It's taking it out of our supply and shipping it abroad. And it's having a big impact. It is essentially a unit of demand, natural gas demand, taking it off the market. So one of the reasons, to get to the economic argument, why would it make sense for the United States to liquefy gas, ship it abroad to other places? So what this chart, and this incredible chart, some of you may have heard of some of this already, is that what this chart shows on the bottom, the yellow line, is what US natural gas costs have been for us here. And it looks like nothing, any kind of movement that we would have seen that would have been dramatic, like this increase here, is kind of dwarfed when you sort of spread it, because every one of the rest of these lines is a natural gas price benchmark for various places that we ship natural gas abroad. So the blue line is Asia, the UK, and then Europe. And obviously you can see a huge difference between our costs domestically and what people are buying gas for abroad. So even with the liquefaction process, there is plenty of room for this to be the most economic gas they can buy. And one of the reasons why this is having such a big impact on New England is because, and this is an uncomfortable reality that I think a lot of us have to face in New England. And this gets to the point I was making earlier about why natural gas prices, when we can follow a national benchmark, unfortunately the situation is worse in New England. Well, the reason for the situation being worse in New England is because we do not have enough pipeline capacity in New England to meet our winter peak demand. So what that means is that we in New England, even though there's gas produced, I guess, a few hundred miles to the west in Pennsylvania and Ohio, have to buy liquefied natural gas like the rest of Europe and the rest of the world to meet our winter peak demand. So the cold reality of this, and the way I always refer to this is there's no patriotism when it comes to buying natural gas. Is the only way to incentivize these LNG cargoes to be offloading natural gas to the Northeast is that our prices have to match or surpass their global destination prices. So as I mentioned, we've got big deltas back here between where these other markets are buying gas for. Unfortunately, in New England, because we're buying liquefied natural gas, our market starts to resemble those. And I'll just walk through this chart quickly. So the Algonquin basis here is the one that we track. This is one of the major pipelines in New England that in the basis is the pipeline cost. So in order to get a fully fixed natural gas price, you have to include your pipeline transportation and the commodity. So as you can see here, our pipeline costs almost directly track the international natural gas indices. And this has been a very ugly scenario in New England because of the fact that, maybe, again, it seems crazy to us. We have domestic natural gas just hundreds of miles away, but there's not enough pipeline capacity to ship it here. So we have to buy it liquefied gas. There is an additional impact too, because of the meeting the last unit of demand in winter. We've actually bought oil as well for electricity generation. And because of the big increases in the price of oil, that is also leading to higher electricity prices during those very volatile winter months. So I hope this helps everybody understand a little bit of the regional impact. This is one of those places where I did want to stop, and if there were any questions, to throw them our way. If not, we'll keep moving, but I do realize that's probably a lot. Savannah, did we have any questions come in?
Not yet.
Okay. All right, so that was in essence trying to get us to where we are today. Okay, so this was trying to explain why electricity prices and natural gas prices in the region are higher today. So now one of the big questions I think you might all be wondering is, well, where is this going, or where do we think this is going? So obviously I think it's important to reference that we don't have a crystal ball here to figure that out. I think at the end of the day, what we can do is track data. And there are leading indicators in the electricity and natural gas world that can be meaningful to show where prices may be going. The last year has thrown a wrench in a lot of our traditional way of thinking about this, because everything has gone straight up. And sometimes traditional years where things may have recovered, there has been no recovery this past year. By the way, we did get one question. It's a good question. So where is LNG offloaded in New England? There are a couple LNG terminals outside of Boston. One is called the Everett Terminals north of Boston. There's one up in the northern part of Maine as well. Some of you might remember that there was actually a proposal to put an LNG terminal in the middle of the Long Island Sound many years ago. It's called Broadwater, and that got shot down by Connecticut. But that would have been another terminal, but unfortunately the only ones that exist are really outside of Boston. I hope that answers that. So again, to get us to where we are today, and then now to understand where are we going. So one of the things that we're going to track is domestic natural gas supply and domestic natural gas demand. Like any commodity, like any market, supply and demand is meaningful. And then I did want to paint a picture for everybody just to explain how the LNG export growth situation is, how that will be developing over the next couple of years as well. And hopefully, this will give you a little picture of where we think things can go, barring any other kind of major economic event or other things. I think we're going to just try to assume everything stays normal and get into the supply and demand. So one of the main leading indicators for supply and demand in the United States is rig count, which is the amount of natural gas and oil rigs that are drilling oil and gas. So we've got an oil indicator, which is the blue line, and the natural gas indicator. So the amount of rigs is meaningful because that means there's been signals sent to drillers to drill more. And obviously there's been, since the bottom of this during the pandemic, when tons of operators went either bankrupt or shut down their operations, we have pushed up dramatically. We are still not up to where we were prior to the pandemic for oil drilling. Natural gas has more than recovered. In a traditional year, this would be a leading indicator for natural gas production. The reason we track oil when it comes to natural gas is because there is associated natural gas that comes with some oil rigs. So they're both meaningful, and again, can be a leading indicator of natural gas production. And the reason we bring up production is because if production did go up, that could be a bearish signal in the market, meaning the prices could come down, more supply on the market. But the reality of the situation is that production hasn't really been shooting up. We have not reached this chart shows natural gas production going back until way back until 2014. Obviously big increases. We hit a little bit of a peak before the pandemic, and then it dropped dramatically. You're all wondering what this huge drop here was. This was the event that happened in Texas, where everything got froze out and tons of natural gas operators just stopped producing. It came back online quick. But back in December, we did hit a peak with the natural gas production. We did see a price drop. But unfortunately, since then, production has just been hovering around 93 BCF per day. Until we start to see production moving, it's hard to say that we're going to start seeing prices move down. And you know, again, these are leading indicators to you know, what is obviously a complex supply-demand situation. So on the other side, so this is, this would be the supply. So now on the demand. So just to give everybody a feel of United States national natural gas demand, this chart shows how this has moved, over the 2022, tracking each month compared to previous years. So we are already in 2022 tracking well above not only last year, but the 5-year range, the 5-year average. Natural gas demand is just higher. So we have more than recovered from any kind of pandemic low. If there's ever been thoughts that offices still aren't open or anything still hasn't gotten back to pre-pandemic levels, you can throw it out. It's back. Everything is, we are still using more natural gas than we have in any previous year. And we expect this to actually continue to stay above these lines. So then this gets to the other part of the conversation, which is LNG export growth. Okay, so as I mentioned, going back way in 2016, 17, we really were just getting started. You bring us to 2022, we are already exporting record amounts of natural gas abroad. One of the things that we want to point out is that there are 2 additional LNG terminals that are supposed to come online. One is coming on right now and will be fully operational by the end of the year. And then another, as it's shown here, will be coming online in late 2024. Together, these 2 LNG export facilities will represent successive increases in our capacity of 16 and 14%. So just think about how much more gas that will then take off of the United States market to ship it abroad. And I will just say, they don't go through the process of permitting these terminals, which take years to permit these terminals. They're very complex physical locations. They don't open them up to not meet full capacity. So we would expect them, once they're open, to meet full export capacity. So this gas will come off of the United States market every day to ship abroad at a higher clip. So again, this is a bullish signal, in the sense that if you would think, more gas is coming off the market, we should see prices at least stay stable. This gets more complicated with the situation in Ukraine, where we've made commitments now to export even more to Europe to meet their demand. So again, we've kind of opened up our natural gas, our sort of sacred natural gas product. We've opened it up for globalization, is the way you can kind of think about this. And when you do that, prices start resembling each other. And this gets to the point I was referencing earlier of why New England's prices are set to see an increase. All right, I'm going to stop there again. If anyone has any questions, I'm trying to keep the time, but if anyone does have any questions, feel free to send them. I can stop along the way. But I did want to get into the expected budget impact. Obviously, that's an overview of the market, but now I'm sure you're wondering, how is this going to impact me, my school system or my town? And what we're going to try to give you a feel for is what we know now, and then obviously what we're going to try to forecast out for the next several years. One of the better ways to do that, obviously, I think, is just tracking Connecticut's standard service. So this is not the prices that we're buying for our clients, but obviously utility prices have been an indicator of where the market is. And just as I mentioned before, as we talked about that we're seeing prices in the 10 or 11 cent range, and how this is a lot higher than what we've seen where they were 6 or 7. I do want to reference that we have seen 10 cent prices before in New England, back in 2014, 2015. The difference, I think, as we talk further into this, the difference is that our own position is that we're not sure that we're going to see the kind of drop that we saw after, barring any kind of major economic event, which surely it could happen. Things like that can always happen, but I think if you assume a normal course of business, we are projecting that rates are going to go up even more next year. So, the utility Eversource standard offer is 10.6 cents. I know there's been some thought that sometimes the summer portion of the rate, which is really just the second half of the year, has been lower than the first half. We do not think that that's going to be the case this year. In fact, there's plenty of signs that it could be higher in the second half. And then we would expect the first half of 2023 to be even higher than that. And then projecting out further would probably just look at a new normal in terms of what your rates are going to be. And it's one of the things that I think is very important for us to set expectations for everybody, whether you're buying through the CCM Energy Program or whether you're buying through someone else, or whether you're even if you're curious about for your own home, what you should be expecting is that we're expecting to see prices go up over the 10-cent range. They may surpass 11 cents. And this is all based on all the things that I just mentioned earlier. So I do want to reference though. So obviously we're projecting out that these prices are going to increase. I do want to just reference what the good news is here for the people on this call, for the people who participated in the CCM Energy Program. A lot of you have signed longer-term electricity contracts, locked in at very good times. If any of you locked in at any point during the pandemic in 2020, 2021 for a long-term contract, pat yourself on the back, because that contract is going to stand. It is going to look very good in retrospect. But just to give you some real data, okay, so out of all the CCM Energy members that we manage, the average CCM Energy contract is projected to save $100,000 compared to the utility standard offer pricing in 2022, which is an average savings percentage of 38%. So some of you are saving more than that in dollar amounts. Some of you are saving less. The percentage has been pretty consistent around 38%. No CCM Energy participant is paying higher than the utility rate. So that should be good comfort for you as we go into the next several years, where we're seeing inflationary costs increase for everything. You can now basically say to yourself, well, at least for my energy budget, I'm not seeing inflation. This is very good news for everybody who made these decisions to sign these contracts. And then, again, the best news is that more than half of the CCM member districts locked in their contracts through the end of 2023, which will give you, another 2 years essentially of price protection, and give us all plenty of time to continue to watch the market to find another time to buy a low contract past that. And then a third of you actually extended even past to the end of 2024, which will just give you 3 years protection. Again, these contracts are really going to look great in our view, in retrospect. The bad news. So I got optimistic for a second, and then now I'm just going to be a bummer again. So the bad news is that if you do have a contract coming expiring at some point this year, or really at any point projecting out, you should expect a price increase. And again, we're projecting that based on where we saw previous fixed energy price contracts at, that the new price should be somewhere around 30 to 50% higher, depending on what price you bought at previously. And I know that's not, again, it does track to the same savings amount because that I showed in the previous slide, but that's obviously why, because you're saving against current prices. And we do expect these prices to remain high as we project out. I think it's important to reference for some of you who may either be on the utility or maybe utilize standard offer sometimes, that the last resort rates, which represent the very large meters, will experience very high monthly rates. So I just would probably rates that we've really probably never seen, 26 cents, 30 cents per kilowatt hour for a particular month. These are very expensive months. And that is how those rate classes work if you are on the utility standard offer. So just want to reference that. So if anyone is there, please be careful, because those can really burn your budget out. And obviously, we're here to help. So again, this is the bad news. I think, at some point, everyone's contract is going to expire. Some of you signed for a very long time, and it won't be for a while, but for people who's coming up, part of the goal of this conversation is for us to set expectations that is expected to go up. All right, so I had, and lastly, obviously we've been talking a lot about electricity prices. I do want to reference natural gas. A lot of you, we have recommended to stay with the utility standard offer. I think one of the things that we would like to talk to each member when we're dealing is that it may be worth looking again at a natural gas contract as well. But historically, staying with the utility for most municipal customers that we've managed has been a benefit. But that, I think as we're looking out in the next several years, if you do have a fixed contract in place, those are going to look good too. It at the very least gives you predictability, and very likely will save, as we're going to see similar size increases in your natural gas costs. Please talk to us if you want us to. I think it's very important to look into this so we can, go get pricing for that. But if you're on the standard offer, I would just make sure as you're budgeting out for the next couple of years that you do budget a similar sized increase. We've already seen it in 2022, and I think we're projecting that it will continue to go up around that same 30 to 40 or 50%. So I just want to reference that. And again, why is this all up? This is because of these prices. Why are we projecting prices being higher? Is because previous to this, natural gas costs used to be in the $3 per decatherm. Now they're approaching $6. So as you've seen here on this chart, we have an average NYMEX settlement compared to what the rates were for all of the respective utilities, and you can see that even when it remained low, the price was around here. Now we're starting to see a pretty big increase in the NYMEX price. As we get to 6, we're going to start seeing higher utility prices. All right. I did have a question. Please describe the type and amount of fees paid to CCM and Titan Energy. It's a great question. So CCM Energy has a transparent fee agreement, which is 1.5 tenths of a cent. We can handle the fee for electricity. And Brennan, remind me what the natural gas fee is again. Is it 7 cents per decatherm? We can bill the fee in a couple different ways. We can bill it directly to you based on that fee times your expected load, or we can actually include it in your electricity contract. We're flexible on that, but the fee is essentially 1.5, what we call in our industry mils, but it's a tenth of a cent. And again, this is a transparent fee. Not everybody who works in this industry does that. I think it's very valuable for you to have a transparent fee.
It's 9 cents per decatherm on the gas.
Okay, 9 cents per decatherm on the gas. And again, that is, once you sign the CCM Energy Participation Agreement, we get to work. And if we get a contract in place, then the fee would start. All right, so just wanted to go through. I know I'm probably running close to the end here in terms of time, and I'll move quickly, but just a few case studies just to show some of the same data that I mentioned on the last one. So just to highlight a few people who I think are going to be in good spots. So this is a Northern Connecticut Town and Board of Education that signed a 3-year contract actually at the beginning of 2021. This contract is currently projected to save them $235,000 this calendar year, which is 46% of their energy budget, electricity supply budget. As we look out into the future, where the prices we expect to remain high and may continue to go up, you can bank those savings each year for the next couple of years, and it may even be higher than that. So again, this is a really this is a good example of the power of these, the energy market and the ability to lock into longer term contracts. And you know, this is I would say a medium-sized municipality in the state, a slightly, I guess, smaller municipality in the state. This customer actually signed a 5-year, well, a 56-month contract, so almost a 5-year contract, at a rate just under 7 cents per kilowatt hour. They were immediately saving money. This is saving 53% off of the current supply budget. And again, you can just bank this to go all the way through. This is a great contract. I think this contract is going to perform very well. So this person should pat themselves on the back. Again, these are really being able to sign at that time out into the future is going to net a ton of savings to these districts. And prevent one inflationary item in your budget as everything else may be increasing. So I just want to reference a couple good case studies before we get into the challenges of navigating the market, obviously where we are now. So again, keep the questions flowing if you do have any, and we'll get to, you know, certainly more at the end. But I'm going to get into just some of the best practices, because obviously some of you who've signed these contracts, if they're in good positions, great news. There may be contracts that are expiring this year, that are expiring next year. So, you know, we're going to be dealing with those increases. So how are we going to deal with them? And that, I think, is part of what we're here to help talk through. So I think one of the main, in terms of the best practices, one of the main things, this is in our view, the number one most important thing, whether you're working with the CCM energy program or someone else, is to develop a strategy. You need to have a strategy on how to handle this, to deal through this market volatility, in which we would recommend to work through a consultant to outline your goals up front, so that that consultant can work with you to help set your budget expectations, set your purchasing goals, and then design a competitive RFP from there. So I just want to highlight again the benefits of the CCM energy programs to do this are that, you know, we have a deep knowledge of the energy landscape in Connecticut. We've been doing this since the beginning of deregulation in Connecticut. We are out there daily monitoring the energy market, finding, and obviously some of the case studies that I just showed are prime examples of us having stayed in front of the market for customers that were coming off of contract and advising them of market opportunities. This is something that we do when people sign on to work with us. Regular monitoring of the activity at Connecticut Pura and ISO New England. So as any kind of regulatory impact may affect you, you're going to get that with working with us. And obviously any kind of ongoing customer service we handle in terms of add deletes, whether there's, you know, cancellations, and making sure we are your advocate in the supply space. And obviously, you know, vetting the contracts to make sure the prices are apples to apples, but that the contract language is the kind of contract language that is beneficial to a municipality, which has unique needs, including, again, add delete clauses, making sure that you're having protections for you know, accounts coming off or coming on, and others terms and conditions that I think are you know, beneficial for this space in particular. And lastly, as I mentioned at the top, Titan Energy, we bring a holistic approach because of the fact that we engage and work with a lot of Connecticut municipalities and things like on-site generation, like solar. We are very good at integrating the process. So if you have solar already, or if you want to look into doing solar, we are very good at integrating that process to make sure it works within your overall energy management strategy, because energy procurement is an important part of this and how you manage your budget in terms of your supply, but it does have to fit in our view, to an overall strategy. So just some additional tips for everybody out there. If you're just, you know, if you're out in the marketplace, if you're working with us, if you're working with somebody else, what are the most important things? Just tips for you to think about. Okay, so I can't highlight enough how important a competitive bid is. There are a lot of qualified suppliers in the marketplace that can serve municipalities, that are hungry for municipalities to you know, go out and offer the lowest price. The power of a competitive bid is very important to drive down costs and reap the benefits of the competition. Going out to just one or two suppliers, in our view, is not cutting it. You have to, there has to be more participation than that. So it's just very important as you're out there, and that's something that the CCM Energy program does. We work with all of the suppliers in the marketplace and make them compete. Know your broker fee. So I mentioned what our broker fee is earlier. You may work with a broker, you may not know what your fee is. And I think it's very important that you know what it is. The CCM Energy program comes with that. And again, I think it's because it was a transparent, it's a transparent bid. You know you're getting it from us. And just, think about it like this as well. When CCM Energy solicited the RFP to select a partner, Titan Energy, that was a competitively solicited RFP. So in some ways, you were getting the benefit of double competition. We competed, again, the fee was competitively bid, as well as we will run a competitive RFP. Additional little pointers in the contract. So blend and extend is something, we can talk through with people. You can extend your current contract out and spread costs out to manage any kind of budgetary peak or valley. So we've seen people do that, where you can bring down your current year if the futures prices are lower. The other thing you can do is sometimes if you're really if you have a contract extended out, you can do the reverse, which is essentially take a current contract that's in a low place and you would bring it up a little, so that you're not having huge budgetary increases in each year. I understand if you've already set budgets that this is challenging, but there are a lot of different strategies we can employ to fit within this. Utilize the utility standard offer is something that we've done, putting customers on the utility standard offer for short periods of time, so that we can avoid the very expensive winter months being part of our electricity contract. We've done this in a lot of cases. It's shown really big benefits to actually, again, some of these long-term agreements you've seen. I will say, be careful if you have last resort meters, because if you're doing this and you have meters that are large, usually high schools will be last resort meters. If you try to do this with those, they will get hit with these large 1-month fees during the winter. So just be careful with those. And then lastly, this is something you may hear a lot of in the marketplace, is this, sort of purchasing energy at different points in the year, to not want to go out and buy energy all at once. This is something we can do. It's called a layered energy strategy. We can buy blocks of energy at different times of the year. So if you have a contract, let's say expiring next year, we can buy some energy now, some energy later in the year, some energy at the early part of next year, so that you're spreading your risk around, not necessarily trying to hit it all at one point. This is something that we do see in markets where it's hard to get a footing for whether you think this is a bad time to buy or not. And then last, managing through energy volatility. So there's non-commodity ways. These are all very important. And I know that a lot of you on the call have already done a lot of this work, maybe exploring it currently. But because we are a full service energy consultancy, I think it's very important that, again, fitting into the overall strategy, that you consider things like solar, battery storage, fuel cells, any kind of on-site generation in the state. It's very important to reference that these are heavily incentivized by the state. The state we are all paying in to these programs to incentivize these. And, in our view, municipalities are uniquely able to experience the benefits of things like rooftop solar, ground mount solar. I know we've done some landfill projects. Battery storage is something you're going to hear more and more about. This is one way to just take energy off of your commodity energy off of your energy spend. And really, it does represent a natural hedge against commodity price exposure. If you think about it, you have a fixed PPA for a period of time. You don't have to think about any commodity prices for that load. Very valuable. Demand response, we had a separate webinar in the demand response product. Again, I think if anyone has any questions about how that program works, happy to answer it, but it is really part of the procurement process, involves curtailing some load at key sites in the summer, and actually will pay you for doing so. So if you had interest in that, again, we ran a webinar. It's on the CCM Energy website on the demand response program that we have with CCM. Demand side management, energy efficiency is a third thing. So lighting, LED lighting, controls, mechanical efficiency upgrades, again, still heavily incentivized in the state of Connecticut. We have very generous incentive programs for customers to engage in these kinds of efficiency upgrades. And I would just recommend that if you haven't explored them, to do so, and we'd be happy to look into it for you. Obviously, the reason you're just reducing load permanently. So if you want to lower your energy costs, it's a way to just use less. And then last, managing data. We had another session with CCM about our energy management platform called Titan Energy Intelligence. This is a way for you to improve operational efficiency, to track usage, and to identify areas for improvement, which can really drive some of the demand side management initiatives. Again, even though these don't necessarily fall into the actual management of your procurement contract, which I talked a little bit about the strategies there, very important to keep these in mind because it all is part of it. And I think that it's important for me to mention the energy world is changing, buying energy is changing, and this is one of the ways to do that. So that is it. I ran a little over. I wanted to leave a little bit more room for questions, but I know I got a couple as we went. Somebody had asked about sending the presentation to the group. We will be putting the presentation in an email, as well as there'll be a link online after this for people who weren't able to make it. But thank you all for attending. If there were any more questions, I know I probably just threw a lot at everybody out there. So if there were any questions, feel free to ask them. We've got a few more minutes.
Here's one that came through, Justin. If we have a contract ending in 2022, when should we start pricing?
Quick answer is now. Yeah, I mean, beginning the process now will allow it to be, we can start tracking it and beginning the conversation. Doesn't mean we have to necessarily make the purchase right now, but it allows a lot of flexibility to transact if and when the buying opportunities materialize. And again, I also think it's important when we talk about running the procurement process now, it's really about, reach out to us so we can help design the overall strategy now, and then the procurement process will fit within that.
Okay, great. And another one that came through was, sorry, let me just pull it up. Do most other towns have the Board of Education and town buildings under one contract? Because I know that there's some staggered contracts.
We see a mixed bag. I think it's a mixed bag. Some do, some don't. There are benefits to keeping them together in some cases, especially if we're out. I mean, the problem is if there's contracts ending at different times, sometimes you have to kind of integrate them at some point. But we see both.
Okay, and what is the average contract length you're seeing? Is a 12-month contract too short?
The 12-month contract is not too short. Again, I think one of the things that's important to reference is that we're here to provide options and ultimately help you, guide you to making a decision. But if there's discomfort in signing a longer-term agreement, it is your decision. Ultimately, the way the pricing is shaking out right now is the 12-month will be the highest price. So if you look at a 12, 24, 36, 48-month array of prices, the longer you go out will be the lowest actual total price. And that's because a lot of the data I showed earlier is how bad this short-term situation is in New England, which in a lot of ways we just have to get through. So if you sign a 12-month, it's, then I think you almost immediately have to start thinking about what are you doing with the next 12, 24, 36, where there are buying opportunities in our view.
Okay, great. And do you have any other thoughts for our attendees today before we end?
I just wanted to hop in. I saw a question come across from Durham. It's essentially, as my brother just referenced, one of these situations where we started the process at the end of 2021, and throughout winter, the pricing was not great and the market was extremely volatile. So just to let let me see the name there. Sorry, I'm having a hard time navigating here. Beth, we have it in for pricing still and have been routinely refreshing pricing and monitoring. What I will do is send a refresh pricing to you this week just to show you where we are today and also give you our suggestions and input.
Okay, thank you for answering her question.
Savannah, did
do
you
we-
ask another question too? I'm not sure if that was.
No, I think that was all that I saw in the chat. I'm just making sure I didn't miss anyone here.
Oh, just last thoughts, I think is what you.
Yeah, just last thoughts. If you have anything else to share with our attendees before we wrap up.
Yeah, I think, we're here to help is the easiest way I could put this. We are experienced energy consultants in the marketplace. We have, despite the good years that I showed in the chart prior, we've been through them. We've enjoyed those, but we've been through some of the other really tough times in the marketplace and helped our customers successfully get through them. We're experienced at this. We know that this isn't fun to have to, sort of break news that energy prices are going to be going up for everybody, but it's more about trying to do the best within this volatile energy market that we can. And again, I think to the question in Durham and any other district that we've been pricing, I think some of the strategies that we've outlined will very much be in use when you work with us going forward. Again, I think it's just about, part of our goal today is one of the things, last things we leave with everybody is, I hope this was informative about the energy market in general, but I also, want to make sure that everybody's prepared, and if putting budgets together, that you start thinking about a higher budget for some of these energy costs in the next couple of years, because the way the market is currently being priced is not showing a ton of relief in the near future. And it's not to necessarily paint a depressing reality, but just maybe just set some of the expectations. And thank you everybody who took some time out today to hop on with us.
Okay. Yeah, thank you very much for presenting today and sharing all of this valuable information. I just want to remind all of our attendees that you will receive a follow-up email with the materials, and of course, feel free to contact CCM with any questions that you have about today's webinar or our CCM Energy program. So thank you, everyone, and take care.
Thank you.